and we're going to do big things, Mi'etz Hashem. And it says by Shaul HaMelech that when he became a Navi for the first time, he was nepach le'ish acher. He became a different person. And when you learn Torah, when you come to yeshiva, you spend a whole zman in yeshiva, you become a different man. Nepach le'ish acher. You should be a different place. By the end of this zman, you should be a different place than you're in now. I'd like to talk a little bit about this tkufa, this period of time that we're in now, the Omer. We are busy counting the Omer right now. And what is the whole idea of Sefira Omer? What does it represent? What are we trying to achieve during this period of time? It's a very special period of time. And the Sefer HaChinuch, there's a fascinating Sefer HaChinuch here. The Ramban seems to take the same direction over here. That he says the reason behind Sefira Omer is somehow to connect Pesach with Shavuos. That's what he says is the idea here. That Pesach and Shavuos are really two holidays which are connected. And you count to make a bridge between the two holidays. And really, the depth behind this idea is that we left Egypt, we left Mitzrayim in order to come to Har Sinai. In other words, leaving Mitzrayim was only beginning. It's not the end game. Freedom is a nice thing, but you're free in order to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Freedom is a means to an end instead of an end in itself. Fascinating insight from the Sefer HaChinuch. That freedom is not an end in itself, it's a means to be really a servant of God. You have to get rid of the human servitude before you can move into the servitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the idea of the Sefer HaChinuch. Now, the implications of this are quite profound. If we look at Pesach as the first day of Yom Tov, and we look at Shavuos as the last day of Yom Tov, so really the Sefira has a din like Chol HaMoed, the longest Chol HaMoed of the year. If Pesach is the beginning and Shavuos is the end, as we know, when you have first day Yom Tov, last day Yom Tov, the intermediate period is Chol HaMoed, so we're really in the period of Chol HaMoed. Fascinating, right? Even though, we're obviously allowed to work, whatever, as you are during Chol HaMoed, at least Mikra Din. And so the question really is, this is what I'd like to explore today, is how can we be in a period as happy and elevated and beautiful as Chol HaMoed and be mourning? Everybody's walking around with their, their little beards there, their yeshiva beards, and it's getting itchy, it's not so comfortable. We don't listen to music, we don't have weddings. How does it fit in? If we are really in this elevated period of time, which is like Chol HaMoed, how is it that we are in mourning? How do the two things fit together? So the Gemara says in Yevamos, discusses the whole idea of the mourning period. And the Gemara says that we're mourning over the death of the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. And the death, they all died during this period. And because Shelo Nasnu Kavod Zeh Lezeh, they did not give honor one to the other. And because of that, we're mourning. It doesn't say that they didn't love each other. It doesn't say that they had machlokis, that they had arguments among each other. It doesn't say they didn't do chesed one with the other. It says, Shelo Nasnu Kavod Zeh Lezeh. They did not give honor one to the other. So this is a tricky thing. We got to get a little deep into this whole idea of giving honor here. What does it mean, giving honor? Why should you give honor? What is giving honor? Now we know, the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, that Hakina, Taiva, Vakovid, Motzinis, Adam, and Oilam. Right? Animal drives, jealousy, and honor drive you from this world. So how could it be? What is this covet? You're supposed to give covet, right? You're supposed to give covet to yourself too. Does that mean you give covet to yourself? What does it mean? What is covet? What is this idea of honor? How does it fit in? Are we only allowed to give honor to others but not give honor to ourselves? What does that mean? So, Rav Ben Ali Shores is a fascinating insight, very deep insight as to what honor is. And he basically lays out that honor, there's a good type of honor. There's a positive honor, and there's a negative honor. There's a positive kavod, and there's a negative kavod. And a person has to know how to distinguish between those two types. What is a positive kavod? And this is what we're striving for, because we want to give honor to each other. To be metaken, to fix up what went wrong over there, we have to give honor to each other. So what does it mean? What's this positive honor? What's this positive kavod? So Rabbi says a fascinating idea. He says, where is the real kavod come from? The real kavod comes from when you recognize holiness. When you're in contact with holiness, the reaction has to be that you give honor. One obligates the other. For example, Sefer Torah. We open up the ark, Sefer Torah comes out, everybody stands up. You have to give honor to the Sefer Torah. Why? Because it's holy. Beit Knesset. You're inside a shul. You can't talk business or other kind of things. You're not supposed to eat in a shul. Why? Honor of the shul, because it's a holy place. Right? A Talmid Chacham walks in, a big Rav walks in, you just all stand up. Because you're coming in contact with holiness. We even say this every day in Kedusha. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Hashem is holy, holy, holy. Hashem Tzvakois, the Lord of the host. Melo kol haaretz kvodo. The whole world is filled with His honor. When we recognize Kedusha, the reaction has to be honored. That's how we do it. So therefore, this kind of kavod is positive. This is a positive kavod. And I'd like to suggest, Rabbi Isai, you have to, before you can honor another person, you have to honor yourself. If you don't see Kedusha in yourself, you can't recognize that in another person either. A person has to be in touch with Kedusha, to see himself as a holy person, and see all other people as holy people. Once you are in touch with Kedusha, then you can start honoring people. You can start honoring yourself. And Rav says that's a positive thing. There's nothing wrong with honoring yourself in this light. We'll talk about bad kavod. We'll discuss bad kavod, which drives you from this world. But there's a good kavod, a person that respects himself and knows who he is, and knows what Kedusha he has, and being in touch with it. Let's take an example. Gemara says in Kedushin, ha'ochel bashuk, a person that eats in the marketplace. Again, I'm not criticizing, you have all these restaurants on the street today. I'm not getting into that issue. But a guy that eats in the marketplace, he eats in a public domain. Harei said doimel lekelev. It's like a dog. Fascinating Gemara in Kedushin. I don't know if you guys got there. Mem Amid Beis, right? He's compared to a dog. V'yesh omrim posel le'edus. He cannot testify in a court of law. Can't testify in a court of law. He's eating in a marketplace. Amar Ravidi Barabin. Ravidi Barabin comes along and he says the halacha is like Yesh Omrim, that he's posel edus. He cannot be an aid in a court of law. Fascinating. Why? So he's eating, he's chomping on his falafel or his shawarma in the middle of the street. That means he can't be a witness in a court of law. So Rashi says, what's the pshat over here? If he doesn't care about his own dignity, of his own honor, when he comes to court, he won't care about the honor of the other person either. He'll puzzle him. He'll make him pay, or he'll make him chayiv, or because he has no self-dignity. He won't have dignity of other people either. So you see from Rashi that to honor other people, you have to have a sense of dignity in yourself. You have to see the kedusha that you have. Then you can recognize the kedusha in the other person. The Gemara says in Shabbos, Kuf Yud Daled, that a Talmid Chacham, any Talmid Chacham that has a stain on his garment, right? Chayim Miseh. Now again, that has to be understood what the Gemara means here. But there has to be respect. He's a Talmid Chacham. He's carrying Torah. He's no less than the Sefer Torah in the Ark, and maybe more. So he shouldn't walk around with a stain on his garment. The Rambam in Hilchas Deis Perek Hey, he brings all the halachas of how a Talmid Chacham, how a Ben Torah, how a person in yeshiva should carry himself. How he should dress, how he should walk, how he should talk. Because he's holy. Anyone learning Torah and has a neshama, any Jew is holy. All the more so a person who's in yeshiva. There has to be a self-respect. to recognize the holiness that you have. And once you recognize the holiness you have, you can see that in the other guy. You can see it in the other person. You can honor him. You can treat him with the respect that's due. It's very interesting. If you ever see Alta Yidden, I'm not there yet, but really, Jews from the earlier Doros, from the earlier generations, you see how they speak to each other, how they treat each other, how they interact with each other. It's fascinating. They're in touch with this. Reb Yitzchak, Reb Yankov, how are you? How are you doing today? And even the way they approach each other, there's a dignity there. There's a respect there, which unfortunately has been lost today. But it comes from an understanding of what a Jew is. The holiness of a Jew, the holiness of your neshamas. Think of it like this. Think of it when you're carrying around a Sefer Torah, right? Your thoughts are pure. You feel very good. You're carrying a Sefer Torah, you feel very good. You feel very elevated. You're walking around with your neshamas. You're walking around with the Sefer Torah all day long. You have tremendous kedusha. Every person in this room has tremendous kedusha. And once you recognize that in yourself, you recognize that in all your friends, your chavrusas, your rebbeim, and it changes the way you interact with other people. It changes the whole picture over there. What I'm suggesting is inside out. The person has to work on understanding who he is, and then he can see it in another person, and he can treat him in a different way. What this leads to, Rav Wolbe brings in Al Yeshua, is a refinement of character in that person. Once you're aware that you're in a world of Kedusha, and you're interacting, you're Adam Kadosh, you're interacting with people that are Kadosh, it changes the world. The world becomes a much more refined sort of place. The way you speak, the way you interact with people, the way you deal with people, becomes a whole different parsha, a whole different situation over there. So somehow, on some level, on their exalted level, the Talmidim of Rabbi Kiva were missing on this point. Again, what they were missing on for us would be considered Kaddish Kadashim, would be fantastic. But on their level, this respect, this kavod, noistim kavod zeh lazeh, appreciating each other, giving honor to each other, was missing on some level. So you're going to say to me, but that's bad. What, you're going to walk around, hey, I'm a Sefer Torah, and I have a neshama, and I'm shining from one end of the room to the other. Yeah? It's dangerous. It's gaiva. So Rav Wolbe explains in Al Yeshua, no. Gaiva is not when you're unaware of your own importance. Gaiva is when you need others to give you that sense of worth. When you got to be number one, when this guy has to praise you, or this guy, is slighting you. When your sense of worth comes externally, he says that's what gaiva is, and that drives you from the world. That's what drives you from the world. A person that always needs others to approve, always needs other people to say how great he is. He's either on top, he's the top guy in the share, he's the bottom guy in the share. He's always comparing himself to other people. That's what drives you from this world. But to be aware of your own self-worth, to be aware of who you are, not that you're better than anybody else, because everybody's great. All Jews are great. We all have a neshama, we all have Torah, we all have good deeds. We have so much. So it's all of us. It's not, you're not better. Once you start, I'm better than somebody else, that's gaiva. And that drives you from this world. And that's a very negative thing. That's a very negative trait. I'll tell you an interesting maisa. It could be I told this a few years ago. But anyways, I don't think any of you were here for this. Interesting maisa that I heard about a Jew that Nebuch was convicted of murder. Murderer, Nebuch, Jewish murderer. They locked him away in jail for life, and that's his life. He's going to spend the rest of his life in jail. He was married to a young woman, and the young woman started getting interested in Yiddishkeit. She started coming back to Yiddishkeit. So, what are you going to do? I mean, she's like an aguna. She has no husband left. She's never going to see him again. Or she can see him through the bars, out the window, but that's about it. So a Rav who was dealing with her coming close to Yiddishkeit decided he's going to go to the jail to talk to this fellow and see if this fellow would give her a get. I mean, it's only right. She's a young woman. She could, get divorced her. She could have a life ahead of her. So he goes to the jail and he talks to this guy and he's sitting face to face with a murderer, right? And he says, listen, your wife is a young woman. Give her a break. She has her whole life ahead of you. I know you've had a hard life and you've had difficulties. Let her go. Let her go. Give her a divorce. Give her a get. The guy looks at the rabbi. Says, Rabbi, I got news for you. I'm going to get out of here someday. And when I get out of here, I'm going to kill her. And I'm going to cut her up into 12 pieces. And I'm going to send a piece to each member of her family. Those who know Tanakh. And it's a famous story in the Tanakh. The guy was very learned, So then the rabbi says, I know you've had a hard life and you're bitter and now you're locked up for life. But here you have a chance to really do something good. Let her go. He says, you didn't hear me? I'm going to kill her. I'm going to cut her up in 12 pieces. And I'm going to send it to every member of her family. So the rabbi just keeps talking very calm. I hear where you're coming from. I know you have a hard life. Come on, let's reason. Let's talk about this. The guy says, I'm not just going to kill her. I'm going to kill you too. The rabbi doesn't lose his cool. He just keeps talking. He keeps talking calmly to this fellow. Comes back again, another time. Talks to him again. Comes back another time. The murderer became a Baal Tshuva. In the prison. And the prison authorities decided that he's never going to kill again. He's a reformed man, and they let him go. So what was the key? Why was the Rav able to do that? He saw in this person Kedusha. He was digging for it the whole time. He was trying to dig to find out, where is it? Where's the Pintel Yid? Where is that Jew inside this guy? And when he found it, he worked with it. He found the Kedusha, he found it inside of him, and he was able to uplift him. Look at the society we're in today. I mean, it's sad, I can't speak because we're all Chutz La'aretz people here. You ever been around Israel long enough? Someone wants the other guy's attention. You ever seen this one? You ever seen that one? It's like you're just whisking away a fly, you're swatting away a fly. Get out of here. A dog. Get lost. You ever seen the one, aloe? Aloe, we've lost that sensitivity. We've lost that refinement. We've lost that ability to relate to another person as a Tzelem Elokim, as someone in the image of God. We've lost that sensitivity, that refinement. And that comes when you understand who you are. When you understand your Kedusha, then you can treat the other person. He's got the same thing. He has the same Kedusha that you have. You'll treat him in a different way. You relate to him in a different way. It affects your kibbud avayim, how you treat your parents. It'll affect that tremendously. If you see the Kedusha in yourself, your parents have Kedusha. Maybe they're not practicing so much. Maybe they're not activating it, but it's there. It's no worse than the murder. It's even stronger, right? It'll affect how you treat your wives, Me'etz Hashem, when you get married. How you treat your children. How you interact with your chavrusas. How you interact with your roommates. When you're aware of who you are and that holiness. Listen, when there's an Adam Gadol, when there's a great man in the room, you ever notice everybody talks different? Nobody's using foul language. Nobody's talking nonsense. You are elevated by being in the presence of holiness. Well, you're in the presence of holiness all day long. You with your neshama, your friends with their neshamas, the Torah they're learning, the mitzvahs that they're doing. We're in contact with holiness the whole day. And therefore, maybe this will bring to a higher level of refinement and a different way of treating everyone. And the bad covet is when you need approval from others. You need others to tell you how great you are. I mean, could you imagine now, Elon Musk, okay, he's a pretty wealthy guy, say he's got a few dollars, right? Somebody comes along and goes, you know what, Elon, you're a pretty good businessman, What's he going to say? It's absurd. What do I need you for, Because he knows what he has. So somebody's going to come along now and say, wow, you're such a great guy. I mean, again, we should be complimenting each other. But we don't need those compliments. Because we're multi-millionaires in spiritual capital where we have everything. That's the bad guy. That's the bad cover. You see this nebuch by politicians, how much honor they need all the time. All these yes men surrounding them, telling them how great they are all day long. Right? That's what they need. They're just, sucking up honor like a vacuum cleaner. And behind that is probably a sense that really they have nothing. That's why they need all this. All these entertainers, all these singers, they're always wanting everybody to adulate them. And it's all coming from an empty place. When you really know who you are and you're in touch with who you are, you don't need any of that. And you can honor another person. Once you see your own, when you're secure in yourself and you're secure in your own Kedusha, then you can honor the other person. I liken it to you have a real diamond and you have a fake diamond. Yeah? Piece of glass. Now, none of us can tell the difference. Here in Israel, that's how the kids get married. They don't give real diamonds, they give fake diamonds. They give this piece of glass to the girl. Right? Now, you can't tell the difference. They look exactly the same. A real jeweler can tell the difference. So this fake covet that people build you up and tell you how great you are, and and this feel of inferiority when you're not doing so well, it looks like the real thing, but it's not. It's not, and it'll never take the place of the real thing, which is recognizing who you are and recognizing your Kedusha. Okay. So now, the question really is, how does the mourning fit in to this whole period? Why are we mourning? And how does it fit together? It's Chol HaMoed, it's a holy time, we're working on honoring each other. Why does that fit in with this whole holy period between Pesach and Shavuos? I think the answer is obvious. I think the answer here is obvious. If we're more elevated now, more spiritually elevated, we've come out of Pesach, which is a holy time, we celebrate our freedom, we're moving towards the holiest of holies, which is to take the Torah, receive the Torah on Shavuos. Because we're in such an elevated time, that is when we can give honor to each other. The more elevated we are, the more elevated, more Kedusha that we have, then we can express that to other people. This is not Stam mourning. Stam mourning, we have during, even Tisha B'Av is not exactly Stam mourning, but it's somewhat similar to the regular mourning of a loss. We did lose the Talmidim of Rebbe Akiva. But the Gemara is very specific what we're supposed to be doing right now. We're supposed to be honoring each other. So it's a mourning with a message. And the message is something that we can do now during these 49 days. The more in touch with your spirituality you are, the more in touch with your holiness you are, the more you can get to that refinement and honor the other person. It's not a contradiction. It fits in exactly what we're supposed to be doing right now. Honoring each other, caring for each other, respecting each other, and respecting ourselves. Because we're B'nai Torah, because we're learning Torah, and we're doing mitzvahs, and we're very holy people. And so this time of year that we have that sensitivity, that's the time that we have to think of the Talmidim of Rebbe Akiva. I'd like to tell you an interesting Maisa. The center guys will be moichel me if they've heard it before, but it's a fantastic Maisa. And I was in an airport. I spend time in airports. I'm sitting in the airport waiting for my flight, and a whole group of Oriental people came. I didn't know what they were. I don't know what country they came from. I don't know. People told me later it has to be Japan, Japanese. So, anyways, standing there, there's like 20 of these people, and they all come up, and each one looks at the other one in eye to eye, and bows down to him. Fascinating. I was like captivated by this whole thing there. And then 2 more people would come together and bow down. The whole ceremony was 5 minutes. So they finished all the bowing, one to the other. It was like a 5-minute thing over here. And I don't remember if it was during this period of Pesach to Shavuos. I don't remember when it was. I'm thinking to myself, such kavod. They're giving so much honor to each other. And they're goyim. What do they have to give honor for? They don't have a neshama like we do. They don't have the Torah we have. They don't have the mitzvahs that we have. And look at the honor they're giving each other. And I said to myself, why can't we do that? We who have so much. Each one of us is carrying a Sefer Torah. Each one of us is carrying a holy neshama. Why can't we give kavod like that? I'm not telling everyone to start bowing down. It's an attitude. Kavod is an attitude. It's a gisha. It's an approach to your friend. It's how you look at him. It's how you treat him. It's how you interact with him. And I'm thinking these goyim, their neshamas are on a lower level. And they don't have mitzvahs and they don't have Torah. And yet they're able to do this. They're able to show honor for each other. Why can't we? Why are we busy saying alo and all this kind of stuff? You know? And I think this is a time of year that maybe, Yeshivat Hashem, with Hashem's help, that we are more elevated, we're in this chol hamoed type of mentality, we're counting with great excitement towards Shavuos, that maybe we can work on ourselves a little more refined, a little more sense of who we are, and a little more sense of who our friends are, and try to give kavod and be misakin what went wrong with the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. And Bezrat Hashem, we give kavod to each other, we treat each other with respect, it's going to affect our learning will go up, our performance will go up, our midas will get better, and Bezrat Hashem, we should bring Kiddush Hashem through this yeshiva. You know, it's very interesting, certain yeshivas, where they work on these things, you see a different kind of thing. I remember when I was a bacher, I was learning here, so I spent the Shabbos in Ber Yaakov, Yeshiva's Ber Yaakov, when Rav Wolbe was the mashkiach. And there was a different environment there. He had brought down to the Talmidim a refinement, a beinanam lechavero, way of treating each other, which was amazing. I'd never seen anything like it. It was fascinating. Fascinating. You see the input of when people are trying to work on these issues. It was just a totally different environment than I saw in any other yeshiva. And Bezras Hashem, with our work, we still have 29 days to Matan Torah. Let's honor each other, treat each other with respect, recognize the Kedusha that we all have, recognize the Kedusha that all our friends have, and our Rebbeim have, and Mitzvah Hashem to build a wonderful environment here, and it'll spread out beyond the walls of this base medrash.